Now, France is noted as a world leader when it comes to education. It's a national priority here, with over 23% of the budget earmarked for it. That's over 72 million a year. However, it's only in the last few years that France changed its laws to make the right to access to education equal for everyone, including special needs students. That law stated that there must be inclusion in schools without distinction was brought in 2005. And while the number of kids with handicaps in standard education is said to have doubled, according to official figures, it is still not really exactly open to everybody. To give us her perspective on the situation, we're joined by a woman who has become somewhat of an activist for the cause, as she's had to deal with it directly. Mother of a little girl with Down syndrome, Louise, Miss Caroline Boudet. Thanks so much for coming into studio to tell us a bit more about the situation. Your little girl, Louise, is now 3 years of age. She just started school in September. What is her day like?
She's 3.5 now. She started École Maternelle, which is preschool. Well, her day is quite the same as the other kids in France. She wakes up, she goes to school, they start some activities, but she is in her classroom. She's helped by a woman, which is called, it's a human aid.
Yeah, an assistant, a school assistant.
A school assistant.
For this girl.
And this is where the difficulties began for us, because we had to fight a lot to have this individual school assistant. But apart from that, Louise plays with the other kids. She goes to lunch at school, and she has she makes the whole day long at school. And what is particular is that she has extra activities such as physical therapy, speech therapy, and another therapy. I can't remember the name.
But she's completely integrated into that class.
It is integrated, because we asked and we fought as parents. It wasn't easy for the start.
And this school assistant, school life assistant that Louise has, is she with her full time? You know, how much does she have to fend for herself? How much help is she getting?
She's not here full time, because full time in school in France must be around 28 hours a week, and the assistant is here for 15 hours a week. We had to fight very hard to get those 15 hours individually for Louise, because at first the system offered her to have a mutualized assistant, which meant that this woman had to be shared between many special needs pupils. And we didn't know, a few months before, we didn't know how many hours she could be with Louise. So it wasn't okay for our girl, because she really has special needs.
Indeed. And does Louise feel, given that she has this assistant for half of her time at school, does she feel different to the other students, or is she oblivious to it? How do you think?
Oh, it's oblivious to. She doesn't feel different for the moment, because she's a kid, and in her class, the other kids see that she's not doing the stuff at the same speed. But she's really included in the class. She has friends, and all the pupils in the school know Louise, obviously, because she's a little bit different. You can see that. But she's so happy to go to school and to interact with the other kids. There is really no problem in a day life, on a day life basis. The problem she has is that she can't do certain things by herself. Go to the toilet, she can't eat by herself yet. For example, she cannot hold a pen, or she needs to do special activities, because some of the stuff that the other kids do is too difficult for her.
Indeed, she needs that extra help. And indeed, Ms. Boudet, you wrote a book after giving birth to Louise called A Life Holds You Surprises. And one thing that's interesting in this book is specialists that you spoke to, doctors, did say that anyone with Down syndrome is absolutely as capable as the rest of us. They just need that extra time, that extra help, the extra education, if you like, to get them up to speed. You were very fearful when Louise was born, but now given that she started school and she seems very integrated and pupils are reacting well, how do you see it now?
Well, I still remain fearful, because I know that in France, every year we'll have to go through a file examination again and again, because every year the system will ask to check if Louise still can be in the mainstream educational system, or if she needs to go to be in a special school or a special institution. Every year, it's going to be the same.
And how do you think that will go out? Because again, specialists say she'll be much better off staying in the mainstream because that will prompt her to develop faster. How are parents and other people reacting to that? You know, is there any fears that, you know, she might
There
make
are many fears. There are many fears because we know that for the moment, you talked about this law, it was passed in France in 2005, 13 years ago now, but inclusion is not real in France. It is a word, it is in the law, and obviously schools cannot reject a pupil with special needs. But on the ground, if you're told it's very difficult for your kid, and the older the kid gets with special needs, the more you'll be asked to maybe look at another option.
Yeah, perhaps the gap between where the level they should be at and where they are is wider.
But there are possibilities. There are special classes in mainstream school, and I think that the government should spend more and more and more on that.
Yeah, because overall it will save the money. And other parents, you think, would be open to having different needs kids all together? They wouldn't be afraid that that slows things down for the others?
With this book, I started a Facebook page because I wrote a Facebook post 2 years ago, and that made a very big buzz over the world about my daughter, about Louise and her difference. And this Facebook page has 30,000 followers, and we can read that people in France now, they seem to be ready for inclusion. Really, we didn't have any bad comments, bad reports, so I think they're ready.
Yeah, exactly now, like all of us. We might be ignorant, but then once we know more...
And now the institutions must be ready too. That would
matches. Ms. Caroline Boudet, we'll have to leave it there, but thanks so much for coming in to speak to us at Perspective here on France 24.
Thank you.
Very quick reminder of our top stories for you now. Turkey's president says he's ready to reveal his sources and what they have found surrounding the death and disappearance of Saudi reporter Jamal Khashoggi. New video footage showing another man leaving the Saudi consulate in Istanbul in what is apparently the journalist's clothes has been leaked. Donald Trump says so far he is not satisfied by the explanations from the Saudi kingdom. As thousands continue to walk across countries in the hope of making it to a better life in the United States, Donald Trump says he will withdraw aid to a number of countries, blaming them for not stopping the migrants marching. And it took almost a decade to build, it cost billions, and it spans 55 kilometres. It's the world's longest sea bridge linking Hong Kong to mainland China. Supporters say it's a boost for business, but critics fear it's another attempt to control the autonomous region.